Canberra's suburbs have spread rapidly in less than a century and have swallowed up many historical sites. Richard Snashall has spent the past year tracing the origins of the ACT and our hidden histories. He's just finished making a film called The Stakeout of Canberra. Our preview starts near Gungahlin, where the first stakes were hammered into the ground, marking the border of the ACT, and it ends in the young suburb of Amaroo, with an 1840s pioneer cottage with a tragic family story.
This is a view of Canberra that not many Canberrans get to see because it's on private land, and it's right on the border of New South Wales and the ACT. And as you can see behind us, there is Canberra looking from this northerly direction. And it is apparently the first view that the European explorers had of the limestone plains. So this is where the idea for the Stakeout of Canberra really began. These old stakes, placed here by the Federal Capital Territory surveying team 100 years ago, are still just lasting. When the ACT Heritage Unit told me about these border stakes in the ground, that got me thinking about, well, what was here before? And I thought, well, I think I'll want to scratch beneath the surface, and I applied for and received a grant from the ACT Heritage, ACT Government Heritage, and I thought I'd like to do it as an educational thing. So do it and distribute DVDs to all the schools in Canberra. So that was part of my grant application. The Stakeout of Canberra. CT stands for Commonwealth Territory, and these might be a bit worn down by time and by the elements, but what would you expect after 100 years? Where we are here, the fact that we're on the actual border of the Territory and New South Wales, and the fact that this property has been only in 2 families for the last 160 years and is still a working sheep property within the ACT. So I found that fascinating, and it's been heritage listed, and the Carmody family who own it are looking after it beautifully. I found the history of John Tennant, the bushranger, quite fascinating. That our first European resident, he was one of our first European residents, turned out to be this kind of scallywag Irishman who was, bored planting and sort of working as a convict labourer, and took off and started terrorising the district, and ended up being caught and shipped off to Norfolk Island.
What Mount Tennant may be is either a lookout from which Tennant kept an eye on the country to the north of him, or, as was long thought, it was his hideout, and it's suspected, or was suspected in the 19th century, that a lot of his loot was secreted up on the mountain, but no one could ever find it.
And of course, talking to the Williams, Arnold Williams and his daughter Alinta, about their Ngunnawal Ngambri history is fascinating. Going back how many thousands of generations, we don't know.
No one actually said to me, do you know that you're from here? Do you know that you're from this family? And I'm talking about school teachers and things like that. In terms of my family, I had that understanding.
And also their appreciation that Canberra is on Ngunnawal land. That was wonderful to hear them express that enthusiasm for Canberra being here, and that it is a great thing, and they're proud to have it here on Ngunnawal land. Well, I think this is one of Canberra's real treasures. It's Crinigan's Hut. It was built in the early 1840s and was the home of John and Maria Crinigan, who were 2 early settlers. Well, John was actually an Irish convict, and he married free settler Maria. What I like about this hut is it's sitting in one of Canberra's most modern suburbs, and it is truly a relic of the small people, as Marilyn Folger, who was one of the descendants of the Crinigans, describes it. And she still lives in Canberra today, so one of Canberra's oldest families.
When we first saw it, of course, it was just a pile of rubble. We didn't know how big or that it had 3 rooms or anything like that. It was just a ruin.
Crinigan's hut is pretty typical of an early agriculturalist hut. It's a 3-room stone cottage. It has 2 fireplaces, which of course you would need on these cold Canberra mornings. And John and Maria Crinigan actually had 10 babies. And so it would have been very crowded, of course, if those babies had survived. 9 didn't survive, only 1 survived, And those 9 babies are buried out there in the landscape. As I go around Canberra now, I see more than just modern suburbs and modern buildings. I think about, these tracts of land were used for these purposes, and these rivers were food sources for these people. And then like Crinigan's Hut, these historic ruins are in amongst the modern suburbia today. And of course all the stories, the people and their stories that go behind these places.
Unlike Stateline's David Heaton history series, the Stakeout of Canberra is being handed out as an educational guide to all ACT public schools. Now, a traitor to his homeland.